The grand halls of the Ilari Palace were made of silver and glass. Alien nobles walked in silence as the sound of metal boots echoed through the hall. All eyes turned toward the tall human man who entered with quiet steps. His face was calm, his eyes serious, and deep scars marked his cheek and arms. He wore no crown, no medals, no glowing armor like the alien guards. Just a worn black coat and a single sword on his back. His name was Commander Darius Kane, and he was the first human to be allowed inside the Ilari royal court in 20 years. At the end of the hall stood Princess Xyrella, daughter of Queen Vena. She was beautiful and proud, her white hair glowing under the palace lights, her violet eyes cold as ice. When she saw Darius, she let out a laugh, a sharp, mocking laugh. "This is the warrior of Earth?" she said loud enough for all to hear. "He looks more like a servant than a soldier. Are humans too poor to wear armor?" The nobles around her laughed. Nervously, some looked away, but Darius said nothing. He stood still, eyes locked on the princess. Xyrella walked down the steps of the throne and circled him like a cat. "Tell me, human, how many battles have you lost before you begged for peace?" Still he said nothing. Her smile widened. "Or maybe you lost your voice when the Ilari burned your cities." The silence grew thick. Suddenly, Queen Vena spoke. "That's enough, Xyrella." But the princess did not stop. "Why is he here, mother? He has no place in our palace. Humans are weak. He should bow." Darius finally spoke. His voice was deep but calm. "I do not bow to children." Gasps filled the hall. The princess's face turned red with anger, but there was something else to confusion. His voice. It felt familiar. Too familiar. Xyrella stepped back. "You dare speak to me like that?" Darius simply looked at her and replied, "You speak of war and strength, but you know nothing of either." She gritted her teeth. "You know nothing of me." "I know more than you think," he said quietly. The queen stood up now. Her voice was strong but shaking. "Enough. This is not a battlefield. You will both hold your tongues." The tension slowly eased. The guards relaxed. The nobles began to whisper. Xyrella turned and walked away, her pride burning hotter than ever. But deep inside her heart, a strange feeling had started to grow. She had never met this man before. Yet his eyes, his voice, something about him, felt like a memory she couldn't reach. That night, the palace was quiet, but the princess could not sleep. She stood by her window, staring at the stars. Her mind replayed every moment with Darius, the way he looked at her, like he knew her. In her dreams, fire burned all around. She was a small child, crying in fear. Alien soldiers screamed. Buildings fell. But then arms wrapped around her, strong, safe, and a voice whispered, "I've got you." The face was blurry, but the voice. It was his. She woke up gasping for breath. In another part of the palace, Darius stood alone in the shadow of a great statue. He looked up at it. It was a statue of the queen holding a baby Xyrella as a child. He reached out slowly, tracing the small face with a gloved finger. "I never thought I'd see you again," he whispered. Behind him, a palace servant approached silently. "Commander, will you return to Earth soon?" "No," Darius replied without turning. "Not yet." The servant looked confused. "Is there anything else you seek here?" Darius looked out into the night sky. "Yes," he said, "the truth." Princess Xyrella sat alone in the royal library, her fingers brushing ancient data, scrolls and war records, but her mind wasn't on her studies. It was still stuck on the strange dream. And the even stranger man. She had seen that human before. Not with her eyes, but somewhere deeper. Maybe in the space between memory and emotion. In the dream, she was younger. The sky was burning. Giant warships were falling. People screamed. She cried too. But then someone picked her up, held her tight. A human. He shielded her body with his own. His voice said, "Don't look back." I'm here. She could still hear it when she closed her eyes, but it didn't make sense. I've never left this palace, she whispered to herself, so how can I remember fire? She decided to search. That night, Zarella returned to the war archives alone. She told the AI librarian, "Show me images from the Battle of Veron 3, Earth-Ilari conflict, year 5109. Thousands of images appeared, ships exploding, cities burning, soldiers fighting. She scanned quickly, heart racing. Then she saw it. A blurred photo taken from a drone of a tall human man running through fire, holding something close to his chest. She zoomed in. It was a small alien child, wrapped in a human's arms, white hair, thin arms, a torn princess robe. Her breath caught. That's me, she whispered. In the man. She knew that face now. It was Commander Darius Kane. The next morning, she stood frozen in front of her mother, Queen Vena. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Queen Vena stiffened. Tell you what? Zarella's voice trembled. That I was rescued by a human during the war. That I was there, on Veron 3. The Queen looked away. Her silence said everything. You've always told me I grew up here, in the palace. But I remember fire, Mother. I saw the images. You were too young, the Queen finally said. Her voice was soft, pained. We erased those memories for your protection. Why, who is he? Why is he here now? The Queen's eyes turned glassy. It's not time yet. Zarella slammed her hands on the table. Tell me. But the Queen stood and walked away, robes flowing behind her like a curtain closing a stage. The next day, Princess Zarella found herself outside Darius Kane's quarters. She didn't knock. She just watched the door. It opened without sound. Darius was already inside, cleaning his old sword. He didn't look surprised to see her. Couldn't sleep? He asked. I found the image, she said, of you carrying me through fire. He said nothing. I remember that night, she whispered. I remember you. Darius finally raised his eyes. They were full of something deeper than emotion, regret, hope, pain. You saved me, she said. Why? He looked down at the blade in his hand. Because I couldn't lose you again. Her breath caught in her throat. Again. But Darius stood and walked past her toward the window. You should go now, he said quietly. Too many eyes are watching. She didn't move. You knew me when I was little, didn't you? She asked. Silence. I saw it in your eyes when I insulted you, she continued. You looked at me like a father would look at his daughter throwing knives. Still. Silence. But then, just as she turned to leave, he said one word. Yes. She froze, turned slowly. Then why did you let me hate you? His answer came with a heavy heart. Because it wasn't time for the truth. That night, Zarella stood before the Queen again. I remember now, she said. And he remembers too. You can't hide it anymore. The Queen said nothing. So the princess reached forward and placed the photo on the table. The image of the burning world. Of the child. Of the man who carried her. Tell me who he really is, she said. Queen Vena slowly sat down, her eyes filled with tears. And in a soft voice that shook the stars, she whispered, He's not just your protector, Zarella. He's your father. The silence after the Queen's words felt like a storm trapped in a glass room. He's your father. Zarella couldn't speak. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The truth hung heavy in the air, heavier than any royal crown she'd ever worn. Her mother, the powerful Queen Vena, looked small for the first time in her life. Her hands trembled as she took the old photo from the table. The flames, the soldier, the child. You said I was born in the palace, Zarella whispered. You said I never left. The Queen closed her eyes. You were born during war, in hiding, on a human battlefield. Zarella's world spun. You told me I was pure royal blood, Ilari. You are, her mother replied. But half of your blood. comes from Earth. That night, Zarella couldn't sleep. The stars outside her window felt colder, distant. She paced her room, her thoughts wild. A human is my father? The same man I insulted, the one I called weak. The one I challenged. She thought of his face, the way he looked at her. Not with anger, but with quiet sadness. As if every word she said tore him apart, and he still stood there, letting it happen. The next morning, she returned to the secret archives. The royal guard tried to stop her. I am the heir, she said coldly. Let them try. She passed through the sealed doors and opened the hidden file vault. It smelled of dust and forgotten truths. She searched for his name. Darius Kane. There it was. A single record. Classified. Operation Emberlight. She opened the file. Her hands trembled. Military record. Commander Darius Kane. Earth Federation. Elite Forces mission. Rescue of Queen Vena and royal child from war zone. Status. Mission success. Injury. Severe. Refused return. Chose to stay hidden. Final entry. The child. She looked at me with eyes I would die for. Zarella covered her mouth. Her heart beat painfully in her chest. He stayed. Because of me. He disappeared. From his world. So I could live in mine. Tears blurred her vision, not of sadness, but of something deeper. Guilt, longing, and something that scared her. Love. She stormed into the queen's chamber. You erased him, she shouted. You erased everything. Queen Vena stood tall, but her voice was tired. I did it to protect you. From what? From knowing I had a father who loved me? No, the queen whispered. From those who wouldn't accept that love. Zarella's breath caught. Who? The council, the generals, the bloodline protectors. If they knew you were half human, you would have never become heir. You would have been exiled. Or worse. Zarella turned away. Her fists clenched. You should have let me choose. Meanwhile, Darius stood in the training courtyard, alone. He was slicing through the air with his sword slow, controlled movements that the guards watched from afar. Whispers followed him like shadows. Why is he here? One asked. I heard the princess nearly killed him in a duel. He just stood there and let it happen. They didn't know the truth, but someone did. Zarella entered the courtyard without a word. The guards fell silent. She stood in front of him, arms crossed. I found the file. He didn't stop moving. I know what you did, she continued. Why you stayed, why you left. He froze, turned to her. And now? She looked at him. There was fire in her eyes, but not of hate, of pain, of love, of something that had been broken for too long. I don't know what to feel, she whispered, but I know I need to hear it from you. He stepped forward. I didn't come here to be your father, he said. I came to see if you were safe. To see if you were strong. She shook her head. You didn't have to stay away. I had no choice, he said. I wasn't allowed to raise you. They gave me one moment, one final order. Let her go. And you obeyed? She asked, voice sharp. I obeyed because they said you'd live longer without me. The words hit her hard. Then softer she asked, do you regret it? Darius looked at her for a long time. No, he said, because you're alive. And you've grown into someone I'm proud of. For the first time. Zarella's walls cracked. She didn't hug him, not yet, but she didn't walk away either. She just stood there, silent, and he stood beside her, like a father should. Asterisk, the royal arena was quiet, too quiet. Not because no one had come, but because no one could believe what they were about to witness. The alien princess, heir to the Ilari Empire, had officially challenged the human warrior to a public duel, not a sparring match, a ceremonial fight, with an audience of nobles. And judgment by bloodline honor. Zarella stood in the center of the circle, her long silver braid wrapped around her armor like a banner of pride. In her hand, She held the ceremonial glaive of her family, its blade forged from starlight crystal, glowing softly in her grip. The crowd whispered around her. She challenged him. She wants to prove she's stronger than her human blood. She wants to erase him with her blade. But none of them knew the truth. Not even Zarella knew what she truly wanted. All she knew was that something burned inside her, something sharp and confused and impossible to hold. Rage, shame, grief, and something she couldn't name. Across from her stood Darius Kane, unarmored, no shield. Just the same black coat he always wore, and the old earth-made blade on his back. He hadn't even sharpened it. He looked tired, but unafraid. "Draw your weapon," Zarella said, voice echoing. He didn't move. "I said draw it." She snapped. Slowly, Darius pulled the sword from his back. It was simple, scarred, worn like him. She didn't wait. With a shout, she charged forward. Their blades clashed. Sparks flew, but he didn't swing. He blocked, dodged, parried, stepped back. She struck again, and again. Her blade cut through air and steel, but never found flesh. His eyes never left hers. They were calm, sad, steady. "You're holding back," she growled. "No," he said softly. "I'm protecting you." She screamed and swung harder. This time she grazed his shoulder. Blood hit the floor. The crowd gasped. He didn't flinch. "Fight me," she shouted. "I am fighting," he replied, "but not to win." She moved in again, her strikes faster now, wild, almost desperate. "You left me," she shouted with every swing. "I was there in every shadow," he whispered, blocking. "You let me grow up thinking you were nothing. I let you grow up free. You let me hate you." The last blow came hard, and his blade slipped from his hand. It hit the ground. Her glaive was at his throat. The crowd held its breath, but he just looked at her with tired eyes and said, "I never hated you back." Her hands shook. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. In that moment, she understood. This wasn't a fight between enemies. This was a cry from a daughter, and the silence of a father who had already lost everything once. She lowered her weapon. The arena was still, and then gasps filled the air as she dropped the glaive completely and stepped forward and helped Darius to his feet. Their hands met. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel half of anything. She felt whole. Later that evening, alone in her chamber, Zarella sat beside the window. The stars seemed closer now, brighter. She remembered the battle, not the one in the arena, but the one from her dream. The burning city, the arms around her, the human shielding her body from fire and death. That wasn't a stranger, that was him. Her father. A knock came at the door. Darius stood outside. He held something in his hand. A broken necklace, half of an old family crest. "Hers," she gasped. "I gave this to you as a baby," he said, "before they took me away." She held it tight, the metal still warm from his hand. "I'm sorry," she said at last. He smiled. "You've got nothing to be sorry for, Zarella." She looked up, but this time she didn't see a human. She saw the man who carried her through fire and never let go. The royal throne room had never felt so empty. No music, no nobles, no guards. Only 3 people remained. Queen Vena sat on her throne, back straight, crown heavy, but her eyes were red, tired. Her daughter, Zarella, stood in front of her, armor still dusty from the duel. Beside her stood the man the galaxy once called enemy commander, Darius Kane. But tonight, there were no titles. No war. Only truths. Zarella took a deep breath. Her voice didn't shake. "Tell me everything." The queen didn't respond at first. She stared at her daughter's face, so fierce, so proud, yet still carrying the look of a child who had been lied to for too long. Then, Vena stood. And slowly removed her crown. It clanged against the stone table like a thunderstrike. "I met him when I was hiding during the final phase of the war," she began. I was alone. The Empire had fallen into chaos. Assassins were after me. I had nowhere to run. I was supposed to die with my bloodline. But I found shelter, she continued, in the ruins of a human camp. She looked at Darius now, or rather, he found me. Zarella listened silently, her breath shallow. The Queen's voice grew softer. He didn't shoot. He didn't shout. He offered food, bandages, silence. I should have hated him. He was my enemy. But in that darkness, he was the only light I found. And when I found out I was carrying you, I knew the Empire would never forgive me. Zarella's heart skipped. You knew I was half-human the whole time? Vena nodded. I knew. From the moment I felt you move inside me. Your heartbeat was strong, wilder, human. She smiled weakly. I loved you instantly, Darius finally spoke. She wanted to raise you free. But the Empire was not ready for a half-blood heir. There were laws, ancient ones. If word got out, they would have taken you from me, Vena said, finishing his sentence. Or worse. Tears rolled down Zarella's face now. Then why did you erase him? She asked. Why remove every trace? The Queen looked down, voice cracking. Because I was afraid you would love him more than me. Silence. Pure. Cold. And then Zarella stepped forward. She took her mother's hands in hers. I needed both of you, she said. Not one, not half. Both, Vena cried now. Not quiet tears, but real ones. Her shoulders shook as years of secrets melted away. She looked at Darius, and for a moment, the warrior and the Queen were just two people who once held each other in the dark. I never stopped loving you, she said to him. I never stopped waiting, he whispered back. Zarella stepped back and looked at both of them. I'm not ashamed of my blood, she said. Not anymore, she turned to her mother. But I won't lie for the Empire's sake. What will you do? The Queen asked. I'll tell the galaxy the truth, she said. That I'm not just your heir. She turned to Darius and smiled. I'm his daughter too. At that moment, something changed. Not just in the room, but in all three of them. The truth had finally burned through the lies and left behind something stronger. Later that night, Zarella walked out into the cold palace garden. She looked up at the stars, the same stars that watched her be born, the same stars that watched her father bleed and vanish. She clenched her fists. There will be those who hate me for what I am, she said softly. But let them come. Darius appeared behind her. You'll stand alone? She shook her head. No, I'll stand with you. He smiled, and for the first time since she was a child, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Then I won't leave. Again, he said. Princess Zarella locked the door behind her. Her room was silent, but her heart was loud. Thudding, hurting. She stood in front of the mirror and looked at herself. Same silver braid, same royal eyes, same proud face, but she didn't feel like a princess. She felt like a lie, someone dressed in armor. She grabbed the necklace Darius had given her, the broken crest, half of a symbol that once belonged to her as a baby. Her fingers trembled as she held it against her chest. Why did you let me grow up without you? She whispered into the silence. As if the air could answer. As if silence could explain a broken childhood. Then softly, a knock at the door. She didn't speak. The knock came again, gentle. It's me, Darius said from the other side. Can I come in? Her voice cracked. No. A pause. Okay, he said. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he sat down on the other side of the door, like a soldier waiting outside a battlefield, or a father outside. A child's hurt. I used to sit like this, he said quietly, on the other side of a wall when you were just a baby. Zarella closed her eyes. You were too young to walk, but you'd crawl toward the sound of my voice. You'd put your hand on the other side of the panel, and I'd put mine there too. Tears spilled from her eyes. I was there for your first breath, he continued, but not your first word. Not your first step. I missed everything. She whispered, then why didn't you fight harder to stay? His voice broke. I did fight. But your mother begged me not to. If I had stayed, you would have grown up hunted, marked, hated. I left so you could be safe. She turned to the door now, voice sharper. And did you think that made it better? I grew up without a father, without knowing who I was. No, he said, almost a whisper. I mocked you, she yelled. Insulted you. Called you less, and you just stood there and took it. Because I deserved it, he said. That made her freeze. He continued, you were angry, lost, confused. And it was my fault. I wasn't there to guide you. You had every right to hate me. I didn't want to hate you. She shouted through the door. I wanted someone to tell me who I really was. Silence again. But this time, it didn't. Feel empty. It felt heavy. True. She opened the door. Darius stood slowly. His eyes were red too, but he didn't try to hug her. Didn't speak, he just waited. She looked at him, long and hard. Do you still think of me as that baby behind the wall? She asked. No, he said. I see you as the warrior who stood in the arena and didn't strike when she could. She lowered her eyes. I didn't know how to be your daughter. He stepped closer. You don't have to know. You just have to be. Her shoulders shook as she dropped the necklace and threw her arms around him. For a second, he froze. Then slowly, like a man touching a dream, he hugged her back. Strong, gentle, unbreakable. She buried her face in his shoulder. I missed you, she whispered. He held her tighter. I missed all of you. Outside, the royal guards looked up at the tower where the lights still glowed. Inside, father and daughter finally shared the moment, stolen from them by war, by fear, by silence. Later, that night, Zarella sat beside Darius near the royal fountain. The stars were bright above them. You know, she said with a small smile, if the court finds out who you really are, they'll lose their minds. He chuckled. Let them. She looked at him. Do you think they'll accept me as their next queen knowing I'm part human? He looked into her eyes. If they don't, then they don't deserve a queen like you. The great hall was filled with whispers. The council had gathered. The nobles sat in long robes. Royal banners hung from every wall. Silver flames danced in floating orbs above. Everyone waited. Tension filled the air like fog before a storm. Reason? Princess Zarella had called this meeting herself, alone, without permission, without tradition. And beside her stood a human. Queen Vena was already seated on the throne, her face unreadable. But her eyes watched everything, especially her daughter. When Zarella walked in, she wasn't in her usual silk and armor. She wore a new robe half-styled like her mother's, and half-modeled after old Earth military design. Her message was loud, even before she spoke. She walked straight to the center of the chamber. Darius Kane followed her. Gasps filled the room. One noble even stood in anger. A human has no place in this hall, he shouted. Zarella raised a hand, calm but firm. This human has stood in more fire for this empire than you ever will. The noble sat. Slowly, silenced by truth, she turned to the council. Her voice strong, clear, and without apology. You were all told I was born of pure royal blood, that I carry the bloodline of the stars. She paused. I do. Another pause, but only half of it comes from the stars. Whispers. Again, some sharp, some afraid, she continued. The other half comes from Earth. Gasps, murmurs. A few stood in protest, but she didn't flinch. This man, she said, placing a hand on Darius's shoulder, is Commander Darius Kane, war hero, savior of the queen, and my father. Silence, deep, heavy, UNMOVABLE. The words hit the council like thunder. One elder stood, his voice shaking. If this is true, You are not fully Ilari. You cannot rule. Zarella stepped forward. Then let me ask, what makes a ruler? Is it blood or is it fire? She looked at them all, one by one. Did any of you survive war? Did any of you carry a dying queen across a battlefield? Did you ever give up everything, your planet, your honor, your name to protect a child? She pointed to Darius. He did. Then she pointed to herself. And I am that child. Queen. Venus stood now. Her voice rang through the chamber. I kept the truth hidden to protect my daughter. But the truth has its own voice, and today, she has spoken it. She looked at the council, her voice cold. You may object. You may protest. But know this, if you try to take her crown now. She glanced at Darius, then back to them. You'll face not just a queen and a daughter, but a mother and a warrior. There was silence. Then one by one council members stood. Heads bowed. No protest, no rejection, only quiet acceptance. And behind that, growing respect. Later, the royal balcony, open to the city. Thousands of Ilari citizens had gathered. Ships hovered in the sky. Lights flashed. Zarella stepped out. The broken crest necklace now fully restored around her neck. Darius stood beside her, silent but proud. She raised her hand. The crowd hushed. Was born in fire, she said, but not alone. The people listened, some with wide eyes, others with tears. I carry two worlds in me. One gave me strength. One gave me heart. I am both. She turned slightly and took her father's hand. And I will lead. With both, the crowd roared, not with fear. Not with hate, but with hope. For the first time in history, Earth and the Ilari Empire were united not by treaty, but by blood. That night, Darius stood alone in the garden once more. Zarella walked up beside him. You okay? She asked. He smiled. I never thought I'd stand in the light again. She looked at him. You were never in the dark, she said. I just didn't know where to look. They stood in silence, staring at the stars. And for once, those stars didn't feel so far.